Hey guys, thanks for stopping by to watch another video here at alliseeisW, where we talk about stocks, Bitcoin, and finance. In today's market, we've seen the stock market, the Bitcoin market. There's lots of price action going on. Today, I'm going to be covering the overall price targets for Bitcoin, talk about MicroStrategy, what's the price action there, what's my forecast, along with covering details on the Bitcoin mining sector. We'll talk about technicals and fundamental analysis. So if you're new to this channel, I would really appreciate you hitting the like, subscribing. Approximately 20 to 30% of viewers are returning viewers who are subscribed. And those of you who are new, I would really appreciate in the new year we add value and helping out with the subscribe. Let's get started, guys. So first off, I wanted to just cover the overall technical analysis of the price of Bitcoin. So it's great to see price of Bitcoin currently at the mid 98,000. Most of you are wondering, are we going to break through, get back into that 100,000 psychological barrier that we broke in early December and reaching that all-time high back in December 17 up to 108,000. We do realize over the past couple days and weeks of trading, the price of Bitcoin did depreciate down to like the sub 91,000. However, we're beginning to see an upward trajectory. Most of you are wondering, is now a time to buy, hold, or sell Bitcoin? I have three lines here. So the red line is the support line that I have drawn out here, where I think that the low point of Bitcoin in the near term, at least in 2025, is somewhere around that $88,000. And who knows, maybe it can go down further. It's hard to time. However, I think just with a lot of the market sentiment, global game theory going on. Countries are trying to focus on acquiring more and more Bitcoin. It's getting serious. There's only about X amount of Bitcoin supply available, so demand is increasing significantly. We'll talk about those details as well, looking at different analysis from Bitcoin, as well as the recent news. Here in yellow, I have, Bitcoin at that reasonable set price of like 120, $130,000, which I do think Bitcoin has that potential to run up in the very near term. We know inauguration is happening within a matter of like more than 2 weeks from now when Trump enters as our new president for this upcoming term here. And the blue line here is the all-time high potential. So we've heard about, H.C. Wainwright forecasting 225,000. There's other analysts that are suggesting that in the next 3 years, we're going to see Bitcoin run up to about 500,000 on a average perspective. And what is driving the recent run up here? And are we going to break through the $100,000 into the coming weekend? I think that there's that potential, especially with key drivers. We'll take a look at it. Here is a posting from Eric Trump. So, the son of Donald Trump, he has a picture with Michael Saylor, CEO of MSTR. We'll cover MSTR updates as well as look at the technicals. But this picture speaks to the overall upcoming details with the United States Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. We know that Eric Trump did have a presentation where he forecasted Bitcoin is going to $1 million. That's in the near term alone. But you see here the fact that Saylor went to the Mar-a-Lago in Florida to talk about the overall strategy for the United States. This just shows the overall connection between the government when it comes to politics and a private company like MSTR. So what's in it for the government and what's in it for MSTR? I'm thinking value to its shareholders for MSTR and also power to the government, where the United States will have a hodl, be the leading number one country when it comes to Bitcoin. Okay, and also here is just a picture of the overall hash rate. So here in orange is hash rate, the green is price. We see a rising increase in hash rate. So we do know that in April, mining difficulty did increase because of the halving event. However, we do see hash rate just increasing, and this is all attributed to all of the Bitcoin miners out there. Like the top three Bitcoin miners would be Mara. We'll talk about the details from Mara. They announced their mining production data. We'll look at that. And CleanSpark is ranked number two when it comes to how much Bitcoin's mined per day. And third would be Riot. But these big three miners, they play a big role because they have HODL counts as well as having the highest hash rate in the market right now. But it's interesting to see the hash rate increasing. So that just means that companies are able to mine Bitcoin much faster. And it's key here to see that these are North American miners that really contribute to the increase in the hash rate. I think this is what's really driving overall price of Bitcoin up, as well as we'll cover the miner updates. Here, just wanted to give you an overall update on just the 2025 Bitcoin outlook, just backed by metrics and market data using the Z-score, Pi oscillator, and macroeconomic trends to really just cover potential upside throughout the year. So we're looking at a Z-score that factors in the ratio of Bitcoin's realized price and its market cap. So just based on the Z-score, this picture here gives us an overview that there's substantial upside potential remaining for the remainder of this Bitcoin bull cycle. We know that with the recent halving event that took place not too long ago, like less than a year ago, we have about more time for the next halving cycle, which will be like 3.5 years. But all in all, because we're still in that bullish state, this Z-score is saying that there's huge potential upside, which is aligned with what forecasts are saying that there's potential for Bitcoin to run up to 225,000. But I think it would be nice to see Bitcoin run up to that 120, 130 zone first before we consider that gap up into the 200,000 zone. So just with the Pi cycle oscillator, this gives us an indicator with bullish momentum. And here we're just looking at the oscillator here in that despite the recent pullbacks that we saw in the recent weeks, the macro trend remains bullish, especially with the fundamentals. We see ETFs being established. There's more money inflows now. And it'll be interesting to see how the companies with the HODL amount, how they could exchange with ETFs to see whether there's an exchange in value with the current HODL amount that MSTR or the Bitcoin miners have. But very interesting to see momentum here indicator indicating that their macro trend remains bullish. So just with the exponential phase here, post halving cooldown lasting 6 to 12 months, before entering an exponential growth phase, we're nearing that breaking point according to this article. While diminishing returns are expected compared to earlier cycles, we could still see substantial gains, and that's really where we are right now since that days since it's been at the low point. So historical comparisons indicate we're close to that exponential phase to the cycle. So lots of bullish signals here, just using just macroeconomics and indicators here, along with the macro factors supporting Bitcoin in 2025. We see here with this line here rallying to new all-time highs as DXY increase outlines the strength of Bitcoin, as you can see with the dollar index DXY in the context of Bitcoin price here. So we see that correlation. For those reasons, I think, there's a long way to go. And here it's estimating that the upper boundary currently around 190,000 continues to rise, reinforcing that upward sustained momentum. So Bitcoin won't be considered overvalued until 190K in the near term. So in conclusion, we know from a zoomed out perspective, Bitcoin will be in the $1 million, according to Eric Trump and Michael Saylor, 14 million at one point many years from now. But all in all, that just shows strong data suggesting that Bitcoin's best days may be ahead, especially in the year 2025. So that really just gives us color on the value of Bitcoin currently at around the 98,000 price as of today. So let's take a look at just overall MSTR performance. So we do realize at one point MSTR topped off at $550 year to date in 2024 was like 800%. It ended 2024 with a performance of 400%. It dropped down by about 50% in just a matter of like 4 weeks of trading. However, we're beginning to see bullish pattern consolidation here, and it may potentially just V-shape up. I'm thinking if the RSI starts picking up, we're beginning to see shorts cover. They're buying shares back because MSTR is going back up into the mid 300s here. As you can see, I think price of MSTR can really break through that 400 zone and potentially retest that 500 zone in the month of January and February, especially with their HODL count of 450,000 Bitcoins. They've been buying Bitcoin every week on Mondays and just consistently just buying, building up that HODL amount to really support the United States Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. So I think there's more to come here with the overall technicals, and I think Q4 come February 4th, I believe MSTR will be announcing their financial results. I'm suspecting the blue line here, the actuals, is really going to dominate Q4 earnings per share, estimated at minus 13 cents per share. I think the blue is really going to blow things out of the water here, where we're going to see that big blue actuals reporting earnings per share in the positive because think about the HODL amount before that run up in Q4. That's about like 30,000 increase per Bitcoin before the HODL that MSTR did. All of that positive value per Bitcoin rise, factoring in how much Bitcoin MSTR has, that's all going to be positive on their income statement as positive return on cash flow for Q4 reportings on their accounting data. So I think there's going to be lots of great news, especially beginning of January 20th up through beginning of February. We're going to see a lot of price action with MSTR here. Let's take a look at just before we dive deeper into the mining updates. I think three key themes emerging according to this analyst from this article is I think overall just three trends that we're seeing is the holdings of Bitcoin yield, their overall balance sheet with HODL amount. I think that will be factored in. The big three like Mara, CleanSpark, Riot. We didn't see much of that variable being a big factor, but I think that it will. High performing computing, HPC AI, those companies who tap into that market, generate AI service revenue, that's going to be huge as well. Along with favorable regulatory shifts, I think that's really going to add value now that we have a pro Bitcoin administration that's really going to change the dynamics here for the next 4 years here. So miners are exploring strategies to generate income from their Bitcoin reserves. They're going to, speak to the government and be like, hey, we have this much Bitcoin, what can we get in exchange for you to, get our Bitcoin reserve. So the most viable approach, according to this article, is how Bitcoin is converted into ETF shares through their in-kind transfers to earn income by lending the ETF shares via a prime broker. So while the implementation depends on regulatory approvals, analysts anticipate that a change in SEC leadership could pave the way for broader adoption. So think about the stock market. So ETFs can really use the Bitcoins that these miners own as a hedge to establish these ETFs. And as a return on investment, miners will capitalize on these gains here. So I think miners are leveraging existing energy and infrastructure also to enter fast-growing AI HPC markets. We've seen companies like Bit Digital, TeraWulf, BitDeer, Hut 8. I mean, those companies performed really well in 2024, but I think that there's going to be so much more upside as we scale out, look into the future. There's going to be, billion-dollar market in that HPC AI sector, which is why HPC AI will be one other variable to look at, along with a shift in political regulatory landscapes. At the SEC level, there's going to be a change in leadership there, providing more guidance on how Bitcoin mining and lending practices would really take place. But I think that just looking at like CleanSpark Bitfarms, for example, another factor is efficient Bitcoin mining. So What does that mean? Having a fleet efficiency where you use less energy to mine for Bitcoin. So what that would mean is lower costs. So CleanSpark and Bitfarms just announced, their overall fleet efficiency, getting it down to like 20 joules per terahash. That's one of the leading industry, as well as CleanSpark. They got their joules per terahash from 19 joules down to 17 joules with the recent announcement. Iron is also another company that has extremely really good fleet efficiency. So all of these combinations will really be factored in as a focus point for 2025 for investors. Let's take a look at Mara announcement today. So just today, they announced their Bitcoin production and mining operations. So all in all, they increased their hash rate by 15% to 53.2 exahash. That's big improvements that we're seeing. They increased their Bitcoin holdings to close to about 45,000 Bitcoin. So, 10% of what MSTR has, but overall, they're able to mine Bitcoin as well as buy Bitcoin. But I think one of the key things is being able to improve their fleet efficiency to 20 joules per terahash. So, they're behind, CleanSpark, Riot, but I think overall, the amount of Bitcoins they're able to mine, I think that 50 exahash really contributes to that hash rate that we saw here, right, with Mara hash rate. But all in all, overall improvement, 15% improvement with the hash rate from November. That shows their overall total mine for the year 9,457. They purchased 22,000. So in 2024 alone, 31,522, which gives them a hodl of like close to 45,000 at the end of the year. That's not including the last couple of days of mining, which they mine about close to about 30 Bitcoins per day. So in the month of December, they mined 890. However, the prior month, 907 Bitcoins mined. So consistent mining going on here, all attributed to the energized hash rate that they were able to, deploy in the end of the year 2024. But that doesn't mean that that stops there. We're going to start seeing more energize hash rates. So like with CleanSpark, they energize their hash rate to like 37 exahash last month. CleanSpark, they also announced that they produced 622 Bitcoins. So they're right behind Mara, and they're using their convertible note to scale up their hash rate in the first half of 2025 to 50 exahash. So really bolstering up their their goal here in 2025, their hash rate target, using that convertible note to support the overall implementation of that 50 exahash for CleanSpark, which is the number two mining producer right now per day. So we'll talk about those details here as well, but really good numbers here, and congratulations to Mara, which is why we're seeing some improvements with the overall stock price. I mean, today, 12.75% here we're seeing in the market. I mean, just with a monthly range, December 5th, I mean, it was at $28. It bled out to $16, but today we're seeing, an increase in over $2.20 here, which is great. I mean, we scale out. We've seen what has happened with Mara. I mean, it retested, 2024, February, $35. July, it had $26 and just recently $30. So that retest of $30, I do see that coming in January, February. It's been heavily oversold, and the fact that analysts see Bitcoin reaching 225 by year end, I think in addition to the hash rate climbing, I think that Mara is positioned to really ramp up here, V-shape up to that 30 range in the near term. And I think just from a long-term perspective in 2025, we could potentially see that, that 40 to $50 range. And who knows, that's on a conservative level. We can easily see this break out. At one point, we saw Mara hit $83. Of course, amount of shares available at that time was much different, but I do see that possibility of like, 2 to 3x based on seasonality analysis from my prior videos where there's that 3 to 5x potential. So take a look at the seasonality analysis I shared in the other videos. Let's take a look at Riot here. So Riot is, number two in HODL count. They're number three in mining producers. They mine about 500 Bitcoins per month. And we're going to hear news about Riot's production data for December. But you see here close to about 17% gains, just scaling back, just 1 month range. We saw that run up to like 1470. We scale out even further. So early December 11th, post the announcement of Trump winning, 1587 down to 1450, and then it went down to the sub $10. Now currently at $12.22. I think that we're going to blow things out of the water here, especially with the financial data Q4. I'm thinking that, we're going to see some solid numbers with the actual earnings per share. Think about Riot Platforms before using the MSTR playbook. They had X amount of Bitcoin, like 11,000 during a Q4 run up. Each Bitcoin ran up to like 30,000, 40,000. So that's going to be positive return on cash flow. So I think the revenue is going to be significantly increased. And for that reason, we're going to see profit for these Bitcoin miners. And I think come the announcement of the Q4 results, we're going to see some huge upside here. Going back to 1 year range, we've seen, Riot retest multiple times their 52-week high, $18. I easily see that being achieved in 2025, at a minimum. We scale up 5 years at one point, right? Ran up to close to $80. Of course, market cap today versus then, similar market cap. But I think with the rising market cap, we're going to see more price action with companies like Riot Platforms. Let's take a look at CleanSpark here. So today, a run up as well, 13.64%. All of this is attributed to this hash rate increase here, along with the rising Bitcoin price of 98,000 today. I think where we are right now with that mid, 13% gain over $1.28, we have potential to see, just that climb up here. I have that drawn out resistance here, retest November 13th at like close to $18. I think we're gonna see that run up very soon here as we scale out. Tier number two resistance was set at $24 back in April, of 2024. We saw that run up from like $6 to $24 in a matter of like days and weeks. So we saw that 4 or 5x potential. So CleanSpark, because it's been just underperforming in the year 2024, at least for the last 3 quarters, I think there's going to be those huge vertical candlesticks that's really going to be coming here with that 3 to 5x potential. So I see, that 30, $40 range, especially with like CleanSpark Riot as potential in Mara. I mean, it can get into that $40 to $50 range from my perspective, but easily retest that $30 range in the near term. So there you have it. I hope that this video was valuable, giving you overall price targets on Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, and the Bitcoin miners, as well as covering updates on why these commodities, stocks are going up at this time. So let me know what your thoughts are. Are you buying? Are you holding? Are you selling? What's your perspective? Thank you. And if you're new to this channel, please make sure to subscribe and like for more content. Thank you.